Carlos Icy with ESPN Los Angeles. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Road to Recovery, presented by Hoag Orthopedic Institute. We're joined again by Dr. Alan Beyer. Dr. Beyer, you want to play Monday night or Monday morning quarterback after week one? What did you like to see from the football week?
Well, I'll tell you, it was between the college and the football, I think pro football this week. There was certainly plenty of surprises. That's for sure.
Well, one of the biggest surprises I saw was the number of players that were on the field wearing Guardian caps. Now, the reception has been mixed over these new additions to helmets, these little caps that add cushioning to the helmets and remove some of the impact, absorb some of the contact between the players, especially in a league, the NFL, that has had problems with players with dealing with CTE and even lawsuits. So, Dr. Beyer, how did you react to seeing six players wearing Guardian caps?
Well, six players in a real game, but they've all been wearing them in practice this year because the NFL pretty much mandated that. Guardian caps have actually been around for over 12 years. They were first designed 12 years ago. They've certainly evolved a great deal since then. And not just from a protection standpoint, from a data standpoint, the NFL collected a lot of data from the years 22 and 23, where they were mandated in training camp, and the incidence of concussions went down 50% when all the players were wearing them. That's very, very hard data to work against. And I think just like visors in the NHL, this is going to be a slow process. The first couple of guys have put their toes in the water now, so that's going to make it a lot easier for other guys to follow. I certainly think that the guys who did it to start had a history of a couple of recent concussions, so they were worried about themselves. Rightly so. The data shows that if one player is wearing a Guardian helmet, the amount of force in a helmet contact is 10% lower. If both players are wearing them, helmet to helmet contact is 20 to 25% less force delivered to the brain. So I think it's valid. It's not going to take concussions completely out of the game. It's a contact sport. We're never going to eliminate them completely. But I think as the season goes on, and certainly, and more young players come up, it's always the young players who embrace these things first. You'll see more and more players adopting it. Plus, from a cosmetic standpoint, they're not anymore that helmet with all the projections all over it, and you can't put any decals or anything on it. They've got kind of like a canvas-like cover on them now, which makes it look almost like a polycarbonate helmet, and they're able to affix the team decal on the side of that. So even from a cosmetic standpoint, I don't find them at all objectionable. So I think this is going to happen more and more as the season goes on.
Yeah, one of those six players, be it James Daniels of the Pittsburgh Steelers, when I saw him Sunday line up with a Guardian cap, it stood out for a second, but to me, really, it was an afterthought throughout the majority of the game. So Daniels, along with Jabril Peppers, Kylen Granson, Rodney Thomas, and then you mentioned Josh Wiley, who or alluded to him because he had dealt with two concussions in the past. But as you mentioned, this isn't affecting negatively any other players, yet there are some players who are still against it.
Well, I don't see what objection a player has to it. This is like saying to another guy, oh, you can't wear that clunky club thing on your hand to protect you after a wrist fracture, a hand fracture, or you shouldn't be wearing, I understand stickum, a lot of people that Lester Hayes used to wear back in the old days, a lot of people objected to, but one player shouldn't have any qualms about equipment that another player wears if it's sanctioned by the league and it's not going to harm somebody else. So certainly a Guardian cap doesn't fit into that category. It's only going to help somebody else, not hurt somebody else.
We had one Minnesota Viking who responded to the mandate or the mandate coming out in April with ew. And then you had Will Compton, former NFL football player, now on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. His response was nobody was going to wear that helmet condom. Both responses to me sound immature when really you have players who are prioritizing their health and more so their brain health.
Yes, but you also have concurrently this year, the NFL has sanctioned a bunch of other helmets that have significant improvements. They're position specific in the way they're designed, and they've allowed the player the option of wearing those helmets instead. And most players have opted for that. Um, but I think this is just something that's going to evolve. Most players hated anything that's changed. Most players hate the new kickoff rule, right? So it's just a matter of getting used to it. Quite frankly, I'm not crazy about the new
I
kickoff rule
I
either.
was about to
But
say most fans aren't
you
either.
just get used to it. It doesn't, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it's not affecting the game in any way. So I'd say let them live. Let them do what they want to do.
Now, the Guardian Helmets brand, obviously, we're talking about it in pertaining to the NFL. They are pertinent in other leagues too, lacrosse, hockey, rugby. Um, where do you see the impact of Guardian helmets, Guardian caps spreading? Is it beyond the NFL, especially when you mentioned the younger generation, high schoolers, college players are looking at this? Is this the start of the Guardian cap revolution?
Well, if it's successful, it's not just going to be Guardian caps anymore. A bunch of other manufacturers will jump on the bandwagon and tweak it some way that they don't, violate their patent, and they'll change something. I'm surprised we're not seeing a bigger push for them at the Pop Warner and junior and high school and even college level. I don't know if it's financial. I don't know exactly what the barrier is there. I would think so many of these colleges have so much money in their athletic budget. The cost of buying 80 Guardian helmets seems almost like a drop in the bucket compared to what they spend on things. I'm really surprised we haven't seen a more wholesale adoption of this at the high school and college level.
When you look at pricing, I'm just checking it right now. I'm surprised to see that you can get a Guardian cap for $70, which is not a lot.
It's a cap that,
Right.
right? It's the cap that goes on the existing helmet. It's not a whole new helmet.
Which is a huge difference, especially when now you have Pop Warner parents or even just parents who are looking to get into football that are avoiding their kids from playing football because they want to avoid any sort of brain injuries. Now, for a price of $70, you can have your kids play in the Pop Warner full contact leagues and still be less in danger from suffering early brain injuries.
I don't know the rules at those different leagues if they allow a parent to buy it themselves and put it on their kid's helmet. I'm not sure that they might not be worried about the uniformity of the look of the team. They might not be willing to shell out for the head covers that go over it that make it look smoother, or the decals that go on that. I mean, there's a lot more that we have to dig into before we condemn them. But I certainly think that, at the high school and college level, this is $100 a player is really a pretty minor expense.
And the way that NIL money is being thrown around, $100 is definitely pennies. Getting back into the exact numbers of it, the data, the actual Guardian helmet brand, 500 more plus colleges, more than 5,000 high schools across the country, more than 1,000 youth programs, all 32 NFL teams, and all 9 CFL teams. And as specified in the website, permitted by the NFL to wear in games if the player chooses to do so. I think from what I'm hearing from you, Doc, we're only going to see more of this.
I absolutely agree. And the more you see it at the pro level, that always filters down to the levels below. So this is just, we're on the beginning of the wave that's just starting to build, and the wave's just going to get bigger and bigger. And I think it's a healthy trend.
Doc, what would be your message to those players, or maybe even those parents, more importantly, who are looking to get their kids in football, but are hesitant about a device like the Guardian Caps?
I think all you can do is educate. I mean, what could possibly be someone's um, being against this? What's the counterpoint to me making the point that here's a device, if you slip it on, it lowers the force that's delivered to your son's brain by at least 10%. What's the counter argument? I can't think of the counter argument.
Yeah, I mean, again, talking back about those players who were against it, who are against it, really it is about the vanity of wearing a guardian cap, which I feel like when you're talking about safety is nowhere in comparison. But Doc, thanks a lot for joining us and educating us about guardian caps here on the road to recovery. To me, the guardian caps really spell a longer term future for the NFL that has faced some trouble with dealing with brain injuries. So for me, it is exciting to hear about the technology of the guardian cap.
Anything we can do to keep our players safer and healthier is the right thing to adopt.
Doc, thank you very much. We'll see you soon this week. What's coming up around the corner on Doctor in the Dugout?
12 noon on Saturday. Our guest this week is going to be a professional volleyballer, Carly Graham. So that'll be fun. I think it might be the first volleyballer I've ever had on the show in 10 years. So tune in Saturday, 12 noon on AM 830. We'll see you there.